the North Little Rock Church of Christ, located at 1708 Highway 161, North Little Rock, Arkansas. My friends, while you're viewing this broadcast on YouTube, please click subscribe. In Matthew chapters 10, verses 13 and 14, the Bible said, "And they brought young children to him, that he should touch them, and the disciples rebuked those that brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was much displeased, and said unto them, Suffer little children to come unto me, and forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of God." My subject today is saving little children. My friends, we have got to get more involved with saving of our children, because our children is our future, and we must do all in our power to help them to grow up and to enjoy life. David said in Psalms 127, verses 4 and 5, "As arrows are in the hands of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate." My friend, David gave honor to men who have children at their young age. Well, that my father could be happy knowing this, because my father and my mother had 18 children born between the two of them. And Daddy was a happy-go-lucky man, should have been. With that many children, Dad had enough children to do crops, to do all kind of things. He had enough boys and girls both to do many things. David said, the man that have a lot of children, or have his quiver or his bag full of them, happy is that man. So having children is not a sinful thing when it's done in a godly manner. My friends, David described the joy that a young man have when he have children born to him by his wife. Notice I said by his wife, because there are a lot of illegitimate children being born into the world today. A lot of children right now are struggling trying to maintain life in broken homes because of one parent leaving or something being wrong, one dying, or something happening to one of those parents. But there's a great home where the parent is growing up in his house with his children and helping them to learn God. In Deuteronomy 6, verses 5 through 9, the Bible said, "And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in the mind and hearts." In verse 7, "And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou rise up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hands, and they shall be as a frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates." My friends, God gave a command to parents to mark their houses, to make sure that they keep their children safe from all kind of elements that come from outside. We've been commanded by God to raise our children and teach them what's right. So that is a parental responsibility that God has put on married people. My friends, God gave parents a command to love him and to raise, protect, and to take care of their children, and to teach them to know and to love him. My friends, parents are supposed to know God. That's why it's important to us to raise our boys and our girls to understand what God is, and how to one day when they get married to love God and marry the way God said love, and raise your children the way God said raise them. And above all, teach them how to love God. Teach and train our children in the manner that's pleasing in the sight of God. In Proverbs 22 and verse 6, very familiar verse, I'm sure, with all of us, Solomon said, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." Now, there's a very powerful statement in that. Solomon did not say beat up a child, but train up. We need parents that have been trained themselves and parenthood so they can help other people to be raised. My friends, there are many children that have not been trained, but the Bible said, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So God still got a mandate for parents to teach and to raise their children. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4 is a verse that all children need to learn. The Bible said, and you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Now notice again, Solomon said, train them up. Paul said, bring them up. So we've been taught two things now. We need to train up our children by showing them how they must live a life as parent has done before them, and then they should raise their children in the manner that their fathers have taught them. Children are important in the sight of God. They are joyful in the family of a man and his wife. The Bible said in John 9, verses 1, 2, and 3, and as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And the disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, neither hath this man sinned, nor his parents, but that the work of God should be made manifested in him. When Christ walked upon this blind man and showed the world what his job was, the people was astonished. So they asked Christ, trying to tempt him again, did somebody sin, Lord? See, a lot of children are born with defects, and people want to say they in sin because of that. But this man, when they questioned Jesus, he said, no, that's not the case here. The case is not who done sin. This is done so Christ could prove to the world who he was by the miracles that he was going to start doing to people. But yet, look at what he done. He gave these people the answer that is not because of his sin, nor his parents' sin, that he was born blind. So therefore, we must not give everything to sin. Because a child is born blind or crippled, that doesn't mean that they was in sin. We may need to carry out what God wants us to do, love those children, and still raise them and treat them like they're our children, regardless to how they're born, defected or whole, whatever we call whole, because we don't want to sin because of how we ignore our children. My friends, children are born in a state of innocence. Yes, children are born in a state of innocence. And it is imperative that all parents support them as they grow into adulthood. Teach them how to love their mothers and fathers and how to treat their families. That is a job that children have to learn. They're not born with it. We have to teach them how to love. And the best way to teach a person is by examples. So we need to show them. Talk to your wife. Pray with her. Smile with her. Kiss her every now and then. Let the children see that there's some love in the house. We need to learn how to practice so our children can learn by us how to love like God intends. The Bible said in Proverbs 23, verses 13 through 15, withhold not correction from a child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Now keep in mind, the King James Bible uses the word beat with a rod. We know what that means, whipping a child or giving a child some hurt on his body for doing wrong. The Bible said, beat him with the rod. He shall not die. In verse 14, he said, thou shalt beat him with the rod and shall deliver his soul from hell. When we used to get whoopings from our parents, they didn't beat us like animals. They whipped us like we were human beings. They tore us up pretty good sometime, though. But they saved us, a lot of us, from going to hell, from going to jail, or being killed because of obedience of our parents. That rod of correction helped a lot of us to stay out of trouble and helped a lot of us to stay out of hell. In verse 15, the Bible said, my son, if thine heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice even more. When Daddy saw how good we acted, Daddy could feel even more comfortable. So God is saying to us, we need to learn how to treat our children in a manner that we can raise them and save their souls from going to hell. We are the frontliners. We have got to be the one that teach our children how not to lose their souls. My friends, parents should never leave their children alone, allowing them to grow up on their own, because children cannot properly teach and raise themselves. Leaving a child by himself is totally dangerous. We cannot leave our little children to think, well, they can raise themselves. These video games and all this stuff we got in our homes this day and time will not raise our children. Our children need more parental guidance. They need family acquaintances. We need to spend time, wholesome time, with our children. In Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1 and verse 5 and 6, the Bible said, "And my son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path." See, we need to do like Solomon told us to do. Train our children to follow our commandments. Teach our children that what you're saying is all right to do. Show a good example to children so they too can follow their parents and brag on their parents. Yes, I brag a lot about my father. I talk a lot about my father and my mother, but I brag a lot about my father because I've seen my father do things that helped us to grow. I've seen him build houses, and I've seen him cut ditches across the fields. I've seen my dad do a lot of things that helped me through life. But one thing I saw my dad do that I really appreciate was I saw how my dad provided for his family. I saw our dad never did steal, beg, or borrow. He always made a way for us. And I never seen my dad go to jail. I never seen my dad cussing people out. And I appreciate that. Dad has showed us a lot of good things in life. And good parents do that to their children. And I'm talking about an older man that loved God the best he could, but he loved his parents. But my Bible said, parents, we should know and understand that there was time when we shall be separated from our children. Our children must grow up. The Bible shows us that we must transform and take place. Some things that got to happen in our lives. We got to grow up. We're going to go through adolescence. Things going to happen. We're going to get grown. We're going to get educated. We're going to leave the house. That's just essential. We must learn that our children must grow up and separate from us. But they will not leave the training that we've given them through the help of God's word. We will make this transformation successfully. These changes that our children are going to go through, they can do it successfully if we just teach them how God say do it and watch them and keep them healthy while they're growing up. In 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 8, the Bible said, "Then said Elkanah, her husband, to her, Hannah, why weepest thou? And why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? Am I not better to thee than 10 sons?" When Elkanah wanted to help his wife to be comfortable, Hannah had prayed for a long time for children, but God had shut up her womb. God would not give her any children. And so this husband he was grieved along with her. And he said to her, "Sweetheart, am I not better to you than 10 sons?" So fathers, there's a learning we ought to grab from this. Even though sometimes our wives don't have children, even though sometimes they want to have children and God won't allow it, we still have to be there to give our wife the comfort and the stability that we love them, even though they are barren, they cannot have children. Because back in those days, people married with the intent to have children. My friends, God required that all children be born in a family with a male father and a female mother. Let me say that again. I got a little twisted because I get twisted sometimes. But the Bible said, my friends, God required that all children be born in a family with a male father and a female mother. I think y'all got my drift that time. We live in a world today where all kind of things goes, let them tell it. We have women living with women. One called himself a man. men living with men, and one called himself a woman, something that God had never been pleased with. In Romans chapter 1 and verse 26 and 27, the Bible said, for this cause God gave them up unto veil afflictions. For even their women did change the natural use of that which is against nature. And likewise also the men, leaving the natural use of the woman, burned in their lust one toward another, men with men, working that which is unseemly, and receiving to themselves that recompense of their error which was necessary. God, when men started doing all this, all kind of sinful disease came up. We ought to understand when AIDS popped up, where they're talking about men having men and women having women, and they're still doing that thing today. We got to get better than that. Teach our children that God wants family to be equal man and woman, not man and man, and not female and female. My friends, children should be sheltered, secured, and protected from all types of danger and abuse, so that so many things that so often happen to destroy little weak minds of our children. And sometimes they never recover. Some of these bad things happen to little children, and they just never get well again. We need to try to do all in our power to help our children to be raised and loved and sheltered and feel good. My friends, parents that are living with abusive persons should remove themselves and their children out of harm's way and immediately report that abusive person to the law enforcement, because children have social and civil rights that must be protected by their parents. Parents, we must do a better job for our children, helping them to learn, pleading with them to listen, praying for them to grow up and to love God, and do all in our power to teach them the way God wants to be taught. My friends, parents, guardians, caretakers, and public officials must work together to give children of the world the opportunity to grow up and to enjoy life to the fullest as God would have it. Children have rights. Children have rights. And we need to treat children like they're children and let them have an opportunity to grow up in this society and love God with all of their hearts and all of their souls and with all their might, like God commanded parents to love him. My friends, my prayers to God is that after you have viewed this broadcast, that you will honestly examine yourselves and see if you are the type of parent, guardian, caretaker, or public official that God requires for people to be that's in charge of little children. And if not, then please make the necessary corrections before it is too late for some innocent little child. My friends, we thank you for viewing this with us, and please look up to Jesus and live.